Now, there is an area in a downswing that golfers absolutely obsess about that is destroying your game, and that is trying to get a lot of lag in the downswing. Obviously under the guise of getting more power, but by physically trying to get more lag, it can absolutely ruin your golf swing and your consistency. So in this video, we're going to talk about exactly why that is, and of course, how to do this move properly so it doesn't hurt your game. So I'm Jonathan Chown with JChownGolf. Let's dive right into it. So the first big problem this can create here is a steep shaft in the downswing, because when players are trying to manufacture lag, trying to add it in physically there, they are pulling the shaft down to do that. Now, when you pull the shaft down in transition, that will put a steepening effect on the golf club there. You can see as soon as I pull it down, the shaft will stand up. So we know having a steep shaft isn't the best of things for our golf swing, because it can create a load of different problems. So let's say, for example, if we have that steep shaft and we stay in our posture and turn through the golf ball, we know one, that club's going to try to travel a little bit on the outside, a little bit slicey, but two, you're going to hit incredibly down on the golf ball. You're going to hit very steep on the shot, massive divots. So that's one way that a steep shaft can be very damaging to your golf swing. The next way is when a player, and this is what I see more often with my coaching, where a player has a steep shaft, is their body won't want to keep turning through the golf ball because, of course, slice your shot won't go to your target and steep angle of attack. So what players will do most commonly with a steep shaft will be manipulating their pivot or stalling out their rotation, because when you have a steep shaft, your body still wants to hit the ball to your target. So what it will try to do, it will try to shallow the club late and artificially. So to do that, to shallow the club late and artificially, getting it on the path, shallowing our angle of attack, will be usually from the body tilting backwards like this, where the upper body will very much fall behind, the right shoulder will drop down early. So you can see as soon as that happens, the shaft shallows. But from there, my body is prioritizing this tilt back movement. It's not prioritizing a turn through the golf ball. So that means my hands and arms are going to overtake. I could get very flippy. And of course, if my upper body is hanging back quite a bit, because my chest is getting back behind where the golf ball would be, and that will result, as we say, low point control issues. So fat shots, thin shots, a whole array of different shots there. So the second thing we see golfers create fault-wise in their downswing because of trying to physically create this lag is something that's quite similar to some extent of the steep shaft, especially how the body reacts to it. But that is, you can see, as soon as I try to create that lag, look how close this club gets to my trail side. So my swing gets narrower as I go down in the downswing. So narrow downswing, why is that a problem? Because in a simple terms there, you could see one, again, if I was someone that was just to turn through the golf ball with a narrow downswing without doing anything to my pivot at all to be able to get to the golf ball, you're going to see one very narrow here. If I just turn through, look how elevated off the ground the club is going to be. It's going to be extremely elevated, because the narrower we get, the more the hands pull in. The hands are pulling in more. That means they're closer to my body. That means the club is going to be elevated off the ground when I get to the bottom of my golf swing. So, as we know, we want to hit the golf ball. We don't want to be topping it. So it's very rare we'll see someone with a narrow downswing, because of all this lag they're trying to create, just turn through the golf ball without doing anything to their pivot. What we would see is a very similar thing that can happen because of a steep shaft, and that is body excessively tilting backwards. So excessive early right side bend, or dropping the trail shoulder extremely early. Because if that trail shoulder gets closer to the ground, so will the hands and so will the club. So then I could hit a functional golf shot. So not really that functional. So why is that going to be a problem? Just like with the steep shaft, if our body is prioritizing this tilt back, then you're going to run into a stall out of rotation. You're going to run into, obviously, like we know, low point control issues, so fat, thin shots, and just erratic club face, because as we know, if we aren't rotating freely through that golf shot, we haven't got complete control of our club face, because then it's up to our hands and arms to see how good they can be through the golf ball to be able to hit a good shot. On good days, good timing days, might be great, but we know trying to square the club face up via this extremely short space of time going through impact is not very consistent of a way to move through the golf ball. So we can't be dropping that trail shoulder down coming into the shot. And why we're dropping the trail shoulder down is because That shaft is getting too narrow. It's how our body will get on to the golf ball. So the third fault here that I see golfers create because of trying to get this lag and manufacture it is a cupped lead wrist. So whenever we're trying to manufacture and get that lag, pull that shaft down, we'll also start to create a little bit of a lead wrist cup. So why is that a problem? Because one, we know, okay, lead wrist cupping, that creates a steepening effect on the shaft again, but also what does it do as well? It opens up the club face, which is the main reason why we don't want a cupped left wrist in the golf swing. So we will have an open club face as well coming down through the golf ball. So of course, if we just turn through the golf ball from there, yeah, we're definitely going to have one, most likely an out-to-in path because of the steep shaft. We know a steep shaft primes it to happen. Doesn't necessarily mean all the time if you have a steep shaft you'll be swinging on the outside, but more occasions we do see that. And of course, now we've got the club face, that's going to match up a massive slice shot. So we're going to have out-to-in path and our club face that's even more open to the path. So that means huge slice out there. So open club face as well. It's not a move that we really want to be getting in there all too much, because what we would see, of course, with players who have an open club face and a steep shaft and all these other little bits you can create from trying to get too much lag, but we'll see again a player's rotation stopping. We'll see a player have to slow down their pivot just to be able to square up the club face, because if you don't, that ball is going right in a hurry. So a very open club face will happen from this as well. So we can easily see there, we don't want any of those in our golf swing. Can't be steep, can't be narrow, can't really have an open club face in there to play consistent golf, because funnily enough, every single one of those will slow down your swing speed, because you'll have to stop your pivot, stop your rotation to be able to flip through the golf ball to be able to match it up. So funnily enough, when players are trying to get lag, they're trying to do it for more distance, but it will almost every single time result in less distance because of less speed. Now, of course, we do need lag in the golf swing. Lag helps, but we don't want to be physically manufacturing it. That's the whole point of this. We don't want to be physically trying to get that lag, because how we get lag naturally is by moving in your pivot correctly and moving to start the downswing in a better way. So ultimately, how our club and how our shaft and even our hands and arms move to start the downswing is they do very, very little. We let the quality of our body movement, so our lower body and mid-torso separating whilst leaving the hands and arms up, will naturally create this club to start to lag a little bit, just from our body going one way and the club going the other, staying up here, will create that club to start to lag naturally without having to physically pull it in. Because that's the thing, you can have a nice wide downswing with the distance between your club and your body whilst you turn down, and that club can still lag as you go down in the downswing. But you're doing it through your pivot, not by physically trying to pull that club down. So this is very much players who aren't starting the downswing correctly are the ones that aren't getting the lag there. Now, for that, we know, like we said, we want lower body and mid-torso to be separating whilst the club is being left up. That will, one, get it so you're shallow in the golf club in the downswing, a great thing, but that will, like we said, create a natural lagging movement. If then we're leaving our hands up and turning, we're having better width between our club and our body, so then we can turn through the golf ball better. We won't have to, side bend coming into the golf ball to be able to make up for a steep shaft or a narrow downswing. But two as well, because we're not trying to pull that club down. If we've got a nice square club face at the top, there's a very good chance that club face will stay square doing that as well. We really don't want our hands and arms to be doing much from the top of the golf swing. So a great drill to do to be able to get this lower body mid-torso turning is this one right here. So you can see how I've got some resistant bands here, just tied up against, or well, not really tied up, but around the upright of my net here. So like we said, we want lower body mid-torso turning. We want hands and arms to be left up there. That will create that tension on that club shaft, which is the natural lag we want, not trying to physically create it. So we can grab this here, get into a makeshift backswing. So you can tell I'm not really fully turned, so it's not a proper backswing, but we can train the movement of upper body staying nice and static and lower body and mid-torso, so rib cage down, turning. So you can see I'm just turning here. The resistance of this band is preventing me from doing anything with my upper body at all. And if I had a club in my hand from there, that club's going to be doing a great thing. So we can do something like that. That'll be great, but training this proper sequencing movement, or let's say we could not have a club at all, turn our body up, get our left arm, pin it across our chest, so now we are physically stopping what our upper body can do. Same thing again, really separate lower body, mid-torso, this movement here, because what I'm stressing at by this, guys, is that lag will happen naturally. Don't obsess about it. It's a result of good movements of your body, like vast majority of all downswing movements. Downswing movements you want to just let happen. Unless you've got a huge problem with a certain area in the downswing, then you can grind on a specific downswing move. But it's very rare you ever find someone who gets up to the top of the backswing in a great spot, good club face, good depth, good turn, and then have a good transition into the downswing. It's very rare to see them struggle with certain downswing movements. It happens on its own, these good downswing moves. So I've done a good rep to those, and now I'm going to hit some balls, and then we're going to see this better movement going in here, and you're going to see a little bit of lag for sure. So let's have a little go. So there we go, like we said, don't obsess about that lag. Good body movement will do this for you. Don't try to do too much with those hands and arms to start in transition. It will not end well. So, if you like this video, guys, of course, click that like button. If you want more golf instruction just like this, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell button too to be notified every time I put out a video. So, you know what to do to start that downswing and get that lag.